Right, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining this presentation by myself, Mike Bristow, about CrowdProperty. We're a very proudly Birmingham-based business in the Fintech, PropTech arena, and it's great that Birmingham Tech Week has been celebrating the whole tech ecosystem in and around Birmingham and the West Midlands, and that's certainly something we want to see flourish, not only because we think it's a brilliant talent pool, but also because we see a big future in the tech ecosystem of Birmingham. So I'm going to run through a few things with you today, and it's really great that you've joined to find out more about CrowdProperty and how we think, but actually most importantly, also about alternative finance, and that's what I'll major on here, and then apply that into CrowdProperty, so you really get to understand how technology and different ways of thinking bringing value to both borrowers and lenders and investors through our product, and also a very powerful sector globally. So just to set a bit of context, it wasn't long ago in Dudley that Boris made his speech around let's build, build, build. And we believe and have believed in that for many years. And we believe that together we'll build a better future, and never has that been more paramount right now. And look, that's a core to what we do. We bring investors and property developers together to both benefit from the tech platform and the expertise that we have in this this asset class. We founded in 2013, and we've been lending since 2014, and I'll take you through some of that journey as well. The exciting thing is that we recently went through 80 million, and then that pretty quickly went to 90 million. And we funded over 1,100 homes in the UK being built. We funded this 70 million pounds worth of spend in the UK economy on labour, materials and services. And that has contributed to around about 180 million of property being built. Those numbers we believe are just the start. We're actually, this morning, our latest raise took us through 98 million, and we'll be passing 100 million very soon. So it's moving rapidly now, but that's been a hard journey to get there, to get into the real virtuous circle of success of CrowdProperty. And I'll go into a bit about that, and really thinking about the virtuous circle of your business, whether in a tech environment or general business. So what are we going to talk about today? Firstly, I want to cover off, exactly as I said, what alternative finance is, and why it really is the future of finance through fundamental cost advantage, giving everyone a better deal. Next, sort of why that benefits everyone, and I sort of caveat there that it doesn't really benefit the banks because they're the people the big battle we've picked to disrupt the sector is bank lending sector and bank investing sector. How we're using technology to deliver on that, and how really borrowers, lenders, the housing supply in the UK, and also the UK economy benefit from what we're doing. Because as I'll take you through, there's been some fundamental pains in the market that we're also addressing. And then hopefully there'll be time for a bit of chat after if you've got any questions. So hopefully this is what you've been expecting, and I'd like to just get stuck in really, but just to give you a bit of context about my background. So after a quantitative degree, actually at the University of Birmingham, I did a master's in mechanical engineering. I went into management consultancy, specifically in the strategy consulting space, and I worked with a load of well-known brands and a load of lesser known brands. So there's a lot of B2C, business to consumer brands in there, especially on the top left of this chart, which reflects some of the clients I've worked for, through a lot of business to business clients sort of moving down. And then at the top right, a lot of private equity funds as well, who buy good quality businesses and really turbocharge their growth for a very lean governance model, and will back that hard, and some great proponents of that: Bain Capital, Blackstone, VC Partners, etc. And a lot of that has been advising on either the buyouts of those businesses, or the corporate strategy, the growth strategy for those businesses. And actually, I sort of tried to move a bit away from just being an advisor, and actually started to think about what other things to be interested in and what's hard at the moment. And having invested personally in property since about 2002, alongside my consulting role, I started to really think about, property is an interesting space. There's a lot of fragmented sort of activity, especially in the residential space. But what I really felt was that the technology I saw in big businesses had a huge part to play in the future of property. And I started investing in prop tech businesses from about 2014, which was pretty much before prop and tech had been put together. It was still property technology. That's fascinating across all different types of prop tech businesses: agency, property data, software providers, utilities, lending, et cetera, and some really great businesses that are now starting to pop. One, for example, being Ask Porter, which is artificial intelligence business on property management. That was actually Google Assistant's first investment into Europe. So that's pretty exciting. But all of this, I sort of said, well, okay, around about that time, 2013, 2014, three of us got together and we said, right, we think the market for funding small and medium-sized property developers is broken. And we founded CrowdProperty. And that's the story I want to take you on today, and what that is and how to think about that business and how you could possibly think about that in context of your business as well. Firstly, anything I mention on the lender or investor side of our platform, you should be aware that capital is at risk. We are authorized and regulated directly by the Financial Conduct Authority, and we work very hard to mitigate that risk through security and expertise and good decision making and strong due diligence. But please do note that capital is at risk and it's not covered by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. Let's talk about alternative finance. I want to take us well away from CrowdProperty. And why does this thing exist, right? There are some brilliant British businesses that have really pioneered this space. Zopa was the first peer-to-peer lending platform globally, founded in the UK, literally the true essence of peer-to-peer, people lending to people. They founded in about 2005 and have grown to lend over 5 billion, and they've just got their banking license now. Also, Funding Circle, founded in 2008, 2009, when they recognized that SME businesses struggle to get funding from banks. But why do these things exist? Because there's a banking market. So McKinsey did a study in the US, and that's what I just want to highlight here about the fundamental economic advantage of alternative finance. As a good study, it was in the US, and it compared mainstream retail banks and their cost structures with a business called Lending Club, which lends to businesses. It's a peer-to-peer lender, alternative finance, and they've lent about 50 billion. So a substantial lending business in the US. So if we'll take it out of property. Let's take a loan to a manufacturing business, and they might make widgets. And widgets is a good market. They're good at making widgets. They've got some advantage, and they want to build an extra widget line on their factory. So they go to the bank. They say, "I'd like a loan." And the bank say, "Well, okay, we understand that. It's slightly risky. We can only get so much security, so we're going to give you a loan at 10% interest rate." The really interesting is breaking out where does that 10% go to, and so about 7%. Again, McKinsey analysis, so it's very good analysis. About 7 percentage points of that cost of that 10% goes in their fixed cost base, fixed and variable cost base. And that is, it's unsurprising. There's huge costs with legacy IT systems, there's retail branch networks, expensive city centre offices, huge workforces, etc., and regulatory cost of capital as well. This huge cost layered in there. And then, well, they're not a charity, so it's a market economy. They should make profit. And that means that basically the source of the capital, if you're lucky, in those savings accounts, where capital is not at risk, so we've got to be aware of that, is less than 1%. So that 10% gets translated to 1%. Now, this is a simplified view, but it's a good example of where that 10 percentage point goes. Now, let's look at Lending Club. So McKinsey did the same analysis, and they said, right, okay, well, actually, their fixed cost base, variable cost base, is more like 2.7%. They have a lower profit expectation because the return on capital employed is more efficient. And what that means, and you'll see two notable differences in the right-hand side versus the left-hand side. And number one is that the pink bit is big, right? So the investor returns is much more significant. Capital is at risk. It's a different product, but it's really illustrative to say that Lending Club matched the supply from individual investors to the demands that manufacturing business of capital more efficient. And what that also means is that finance is often quicker, better served, etc., because those purpose-built tech systems, but also slightly cheaper. So in this case, it might be at 9.5% similar. So you can see economically why this just makes sense versus the banking market. And that's why this market has been in strong growth. So we can look at it a different way. And whether you're a first principles economist, like the previous slide, or someone who likes to look at value chains and disruption, the two very valid points around the sector. So this is where we can bring it into property, and it's a useful example. So a great example is, well, my mother is an investor on our platform. Now, to be fair, she's done 43 years of due diligence on me, but still, there's 12,000 other investors. But traditionally, 10, 15 years ago, she might have said, I've got this allocation in my portfolio that I want to invest. Okay? It's not savings, it's investment. I might go to an IFA, independent financial advisor. They might say, well, put your money in this generalist fund. That generalist fund might say, oh, okay, I need to put some allocation into property lending. That property lending fund will then find some brokers to find some property developers who are doing some projects. And the problem here, there are so many people in between that basically turn a property development loan at say 10% into very little returns for my mother in this case. So we looked at that and thought, well, that's inefficiency and costly, because each of those parties have a cost, and quite rightly, market economy, they have rights to profits as well, because otherwise they wouldn't exist and they weren't adding value. So we did this. We just said, right, we'll deal directly with retail, high net worth, and actually institutional investors now. And we will allocate those funds directly to developers that can add value with that, with that money. This is more efficiently matching supply and demand of capital. And that gives the developer a better deal and better service, and retail investors a better share of what the developer is paying. We're actually the first and largest to really nail the direct-to-market piece on the developer side, because it's such a brokered market. But again, we wanted to take every party out of this to make it as efficient as possible. So every business should start with a pain. It's pretty obvious, and there are some great stories out there of businesses that really illustrate that pain and maybe make up some of the stories. But sure enough, we felt this ourselves, that fundamental pain in raising finance as small and medium-sized property developers ourselves. So we set about solving that pain. And if you look at the market, okay, broadly, okay, on the borrower side of our marketplace, is a need for about £30 billion worth of debt per year, given we're needing to build 200,000-300,000 homes a year as a country. It's a big market. And then on the retail lender side, so on the sort of the investor side, there's £5 trillion worth of capital tied up in savings, investments, and pensions. And 1.3 trillion of that is in savings, earning less than 0.8% per annum, which is less than inflation. Therefore, you're losing money every day. So we said, how do we bring those together in a proposition that really works, that also leverages a load of expertise to do this right and get significant uplift in returns, and a fair, if not very good, risk-reward balance. So the risk that capital is at risk versus the reward. Well, we give our retail lenders 7 to 8% returns with capital risk. But that's, and now you can put that in ISA or pension lending, so tax-free vehicles. And that better rewards them for the money, their money, that ultimately goes to property development. But there's a bigger pain. So there are pains on both sides of this marketplace. And I want to run you through these pains because this is how you really need to think about challenges that you want to solve and be so customer centric. Financial services is famously not customer centric. And that's what we've brought to this space, given we know it so well. So what is the pain? At the macro level, this big picture, UK-wide level, this is about housing supply and spending the economy. So one thing we are brilliant, spectacularly good at doing as a country is building 200,000 homes a year. The problem is that we need 300,000 homes. And that has actually, it's widespread in government rhetoric, especially at the minute, about the need to get more homes built. But there's a key point underneath that as well. How do we do that? Who's going to do that? Well, this is where the pain really is. So in 2008, small builders built around 30% of that 200,000 supply. In 2017, that was down at 10%. Okay. This is profoundly problematic, given that we need more homes, and two of the main segments here are massively shrinking. The market's concentrating into large builders, and large builders have the challenge of needing large sites. And by definition, they are finite in this country, whereas small plots of land to build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units are almost infinite. And certainly SMEs, small builders, medium builders, can really unlock that potential. Now, as a good consultant, I'd look at that market and say, right, that's massively shrinking. Okay, it's either very unattractive or there are enormous barriers or problems with it. Well, we see the problems and we set about solving those because we firmly believe that as a country, because of the finite amounts of large plots for large builders, if you roll that forward and assume they built the same, which I think is optimistic, you need to see much more delivery from small and medium-sized builders to get anywhere near 300,000. And that's what we want to really get to the heart of. So we had intuition as to this pain and what was causing the pain. But we also went out to ask the market. So we did a huge survey in October 19, over 500 participants, all of which are small and medium-sized developers. And this was probably the largest survey ever done in this space because it's very fragmented and difficult to reach. But we have those unique channels direct into that market. We asked them two similar but importantly different questions. So firstly, which of the following factors are stopping you from building more homes? So quite overwhelmingly here, funding. So funding is has stopped people building more homes, SME. So what about looking forward? Subtly different question. Which of the following do you think will most benefit you to build more homes over the coming 3 years? And what we see here is better sources of funding being, again, an overwhelmingly strong answer. The others, an improving economy, well, we can't control that. Third, improved planning system, and fourth, improved tax policies. They're the levers the government are working on right now to make sure that house building continues, spending the economy continues, and the housing market stays liquid. But we're addressing that number one point that says we're building a great source of funding for SME property developers to reverse that horrible declining trend. So let's dig a bit deeper into this. again, this constant effort of research and understanding, and not relying on our own impressions, experience, means that we can refine our proposition. And we'll come on to the tech bit in a bit. You've got to pin everything to the customer and the customer demand. So we hold regular focus groups, both borrower side of our marketplace and also lender, investor side of our marketplace. And the borrower ones are great because we sit 6 small property developers in a room. We buy some food, maybe a couple of drinks, and we ask as few questions as possible and say as little as possible and see how the conversation goes. Classic focus group research. And the best question that I like that usually prompts interesting conversations is, tell us about your experience with existing sources of capital for your property projects. And this is the kind of stuff that comes out. And actually, this is the stuff that's publishable. There's huge amounts of swearing that happens immediately after asking the question. But there's real gold dust into where the pains really sit within the market. And we don't need to dig into that here. But needless to say, qualitatively massive pain. Okay. But the really important thing then is to then take this and say, right, classic qualitative to quantitative research, do the focus group, understand the array of pain, then go and prioritize and order. And that's what we then take these insights and ask quantitative online surveys. And this is what comes out. And so we go out there and ask that relevant set of people, when you raise finance for a property project on a scale of 1 to 6, how important are the following factors? Transparency, speed, loan amount, ease of use, access to decision makers. They come out strongly. Right? Now, that's really powerful because now we can shape our communication and our proposition around those key priority areas that are the biggest concerns for our target market. But what's more interesting, okay, is when you dig deeper into this. So we took that set of people and we segmented it into 2 different cohorts. Number 1, those who are less experienced in development. Number 2, those who are more experienced in development, just to see if there's interesting insight from those differences. And sure enough, there are. So I'm going to bring in the data. I'm going to keep the axis the same. And this is what relatively less experienced people say. So what we see is we start to look at the spikes. Right, so relatively less experienced property developers want max loan to value. They want they place high importance on the arrangement of exit fees, the timing of fees, the interest rate, etc. Now that's useful. That's interesting because it's all the numbers, okay? And everyone needs a good spreadsheet model in order to build confidence and conviction in what they are, effectively what they're going to build and spend 12 to 18 months developing. So they need that confidence. That's rational. But what's really interesting is when you compare that to more experience. And that's this pink line. And again, if we look at the spikes above the green line of where relatively more experienced people find things more important, we see transparency, speed, ease of use, access to decision makers, knowledge and expertise. Now that doesn't mean the numbers aren't important. What it means is that all that comes around the numbers is actually more important because these are the guys that have experienced the market and the pains of the market for so long. So this kind of research, qual to quant, and then insights on here gives you so many dimensions to communicate to your audience, because now we can go to less experienced developers and say, yeah, you're right to worry about these numbers, okay? But also build into your decision making what more experienced people say. Look for speed, look for ease of use, look for transparency, look for access to decision making. That's really important. So this sort of insight has been really powerful in us building our business and our argument and our proposition to the market. So what do? We'll lend against any sort of property project. It might be a development finance project. It might be an airspace development, which is sort of plonking buildings on top of buildings, which is very hot at the moment. We do anything. And again, it's the sort of business tip around this is that we used to say we did everything. Now we say we do everything, but we've got loads of icons for people to pigeonhole and to say, right, I actually want finance for that. Oh, they've got a specific product for that. What we've done hasn't shifted hugely, but what we've done is understood the human effects or the human need for pigeonholes and say, right, these are the products that we have. The products don't vary hugely, but it's really, really important that people resonate with specific service and specific product for exactly what they need, because that helps with that process. Things that are hot at the moment, it's really exciting, the loads of changes in the property market at the moment. Some projects are going late, so we're doing development exit products. So we'll refinance people. Airspace development, I mentioned that. That's now changed with permitted development. And without planning permission, you can drop flat height onto existing buildings. Modern methods of construction, modular housing, it's a hot thing. And then also ways to structure deals like joint venture finance. And then we have this bucket, which is special situations finance, which really covers any other product or any other situation that we can help that borrower solve. But this also shows it right at the cutting edge and really factoring in that we know, we understand these products. Again, we would have done them before we actually had an icon and a brand and a product around them. But it's very important to really sort of clearly articulate. So what are we? We're property financed by property people. And this is about honing a distinct sort of articulation of how we differ from competitors. In a market, a financial services market that really doesn't understand the customer in general, it's huge pain. We can go to market and say, look, we understand. What you want is someone to make it to make it easy for you, quick for you, so you can spend more time finding sites, developing sites, growing your property business. We understand that, we get that, we resonate, and it's a very distinct proposition in the market, and it also helps on direct route to market as well. And sure enough, we deliver as well. And we'll talk a touch about the lender, the investor side in a moment. But through COVID-19 lockdown, the market stopped lending. And the vast majority of reasons for that was that lots of lenders had concentrated sources of capital from wholesale institutions or sources. And they, parts of their business will have been linked to equity market volatility. And in those kind of environments, you say, right, I'm going to pause lending. Whereas we were able to continue lending because we've got a very diverse source of capital from retail, high net worth, sophisticated investors, funds, institutions, all lending on a platform that have different dynamics at different points in time. And actually what we saw was a huge search for yield throughout lockdown. And actually we've been setting funding records throughout COVID-19. So the last 60 projects we've launched since March 23rd lockdown, we've funded those in an average of under 1 minute. So staggering speeds on our platform. And that really is, you know, not only the search for yield, but building a very strong trusted brand over many years, doing very high quality lending. We have a perfect track record of repaying capital and interest. And all of that has really driven our reputation and therefore our consistency of funding from multiple sources. So it's really exciting. You can see the end product in times like this of building a great trusted brand, because you never know when your sector gets rocked, your market gets rocked, or the economy gets rocked. What you want to be is right at the epitome of the sector, so that it is the others, the weaker businesses, that will fail in those times, and you will benefit long run from market share gain. So we've got loads of case studies on our platform. Great to see sort of 3 or 4 minutes, and we'll see one. I'll put a little medley on in a minute. It's just 3.5 minutes. But this really brings to life what people are actually investing in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the dynamics of our marketplace work. And this is, I mean, after years of being in consulting, seeing many different businesses, this is the key to see in any business. And what is the virtuous circle for that business? And we see it as quality lending, protecting lenders' capital gets this virtuous circle whirring. And let me talk you through that. So firstly, what we did very, very successfully was attract many direct applications. We're seeing over £2 billion worth of projects applying through our platform each year, over 200 million a month. You've got to assess those very efficiently, very effectively. We use technology for efficiency and expertise for effectiveness of lending. And that's really, really important, both of those together. It's not all tech. It's very much expertise and tech working in tandem very effectively. You then build expertise-based relationships with our borrowers because we have that direct origination. We have a really close relationship, and therefore we're able to deliver superior underwriting and also better monitoring through the process and better exits as a result. And that has driven our track record. And so we select and fund the best projects. In the next slide, I'll show you what proportion we fund. We then directly monitor those through to payback, make sure we get those projects out. And we take a real partnership approach to that as well, because actually it's in our best interest and the developer's best interest that that project is successfully exited. So we work together on it rather than a sort of an arm's length, quite ivory tower approach of many institutions around this. We're proactive and supported through the process as property people ourselves. So that gives us the potential to continue our class-leading track record, which was very much what we're doing, and 100% capital interest track record since 2014. And that attracts further retail and institutional capital because they look at you and say, oh, God, that's an amazing track record. Okay, can I be a part of this? And that's actually what happened with institutional capital. A load of institutions started approaching us saying, what you're doing is great and you have a stellar track record. Nobody in the market has that level, that track record. So look, can we put some of our capital into that? And that then drives more direct applications that you assess efficiently and effectively. And that's how you get the virtuous circle work. So really urge you to look at and think about what the virtuous circle is for your business, because we're so fixed around this. And it also drives a long-term approach. And in our view, that long-term approach is quality lending above anything. And you'll see now, it's like, right, this is the amount of applications we've ever seen. So it's 3.7 billion, I think it is now. And the pink line, I'm just bringing you in, you might be able to see it right at the bottom there, is what we funded. Less than 3%. So we've assessed 4,500, 3.7 billion pounds worth of needs. And that massively feeds our the data that we get, our data set, our analytics, etc., but also our developer database to take us to market. We funded 100 million, yeah, less than 3%. And these numbers are really important because this is what drives the long-term business, the 10, 20, 30-year view on building a brilliant lender, not the pump it and just fingers crossed approach, which we have seen in the sector, and that has created reputational damage in the sector. A couple of businesses have gone under, and they have definitely been not in as scrutinous an approach as we've done, and some people have maybe suggested they shoveled money out the door. Well, that's not how to build a long-term business. You've got to work on the long-term dynamics as well. So lending, I mentioned we're a fintech PropTech business. Lending is fintech, not fin whispered and tech shouted. And this is really, really important. And the same goes for PropTech and various other ex-tech sectors. Okay, you've got to think not just about the tech. So for us, as I mentioned, this phrase that we use technology and have a brilliant technology platform for efficiency and expertise for effectiveness. You put those two things together and you build the best lender in the market, which is exactly what we've done. Lending in particular is crucial because you've got to understand the asset classes human beings. And in property in particular, you can run actuarial statistical models around consumer lending and SME lending, like business like Zopa and Lending Works on the consumer side and funding circle. But in property, it's more complex. You cannot get an algorithm view on architectural integrity or conditional factors or similar. You can get tech to do levels of valuation and statistical analysis. You need that expert overlay. So we serve brilliant data and viewpoints through our tech platform to our experts. And we've done that through building an in-house platform. We've always had that in-house. Our team are also in our office in Birmingham for absolute control and over the tech build that we have. And we think about it in three elements. We've got borrower side functionality, applications and loan management. We've got lender side functionality, and we've got some really, really cool systems and processes on the lender side that enable people to invest in different ways. And then our internal operations. You put all of these together, and whether proportionally, we will be funded more by institutional capital going forward. But what's really important is this platform that's built for scaling. And we know that we already have platform capabilities to go to hundreds of millions of lending per year by 2024. And that's the kind of trajectory we're on. But we're constantly working on this. About a third of our team of 32 are tech developers that are building this and building further competitive advantage through our tech platform. We're very pleased to be recognised in lots of ways in awards, and that goes through property sectors, through financial services, through technology, fintech, PropTech, through our alternative finance sector, for entrepreneurship, for scale-up business credibility as well. And we're really proud of this. And these are an important element to validating and having external verification on what you're working hard to do. So I'm going to finish up with just playing this 3-minute video, which slight caveat on my upload speed and your download speed. The sound settings should be fine. So I'll leave you with this, and then we'll pick up at the end of it for any questions. But just gives a bit more of a flavour as to what we're doing and how we're changing the space.
With CrowdProperty, we found that they instantly understood the project. They cleared a lot of obstacles for us and made the process seamless.
They like to build strong relationships. They're good at speed, they're good at the funding element and getting everything sorted, while they can leave people like me to go out there and find more projects.
From the first dealings with the CrowdProperty management, we realized that they were expert professionals in property. It was quite refreshing coming after the dealings with the bankers to see that there was someone that could actually understand what we needed.
It was so easy working with CrowdProperty. They understand the project, they understand the developers, they understand the key risks that are involved, and they just make it very easy to be able to access the funds. What really sets them apart from more traditional development finance lenders is the ability to actually talk to a real person and the speed to get the application process completed, to get a decision back, and to start actually drawing down from the funds. To sum CrowdProperty up, it's property finance provided by property people. They actually understand property, they understand development. And it was a really simple and easy process, which is one of the key things that you want when you're doing a development, is that certainty of knowing you're going to get the funds when you need them.
I was provided with a case officer. I actually felt like I had an extra member of the team that was working in my business, helping me see the project from start to finish. I would certainly recommend CrowdProperty, really because of the speed at how quick they're able to move. Obviously on this project they were able to raise the funds within 9 days. Now that's obviously considerably quicker than a traditional lender.
CrowdProperty is property finance done by property people. Working with CrowdProperty has been a game changer. I was very amazed how funds were able to be raised on their platform in less than 2 minutes. When it came down to drawing down the funds, it was a very smooth process, and within less than 24 hours, we were able to carry on with the project without any stops at all.
And I do recommend CrowdProperty. I think it's great for a developer who wants to work in a more interactive way with their lenders. They understand the business, they'll understand what you need from the project as a developer, and they're very straightforward to deal with. The process is very quick and simple. If you have questions or need information to be transferred backwards and forwards, they're very efficient that way.
CrowdProperty saved the day really and came in last minute to get the project across the line. They were very straightforward. Within 24 hours I had a decision that they could lend, and then again from there it was probably about 2 to 3 weeks before the funding was actually released. The people at CrowdProperty themselves are very friendly, very approachable, and almost wanting your project to be successful, and it's almost like having a member of your team in CrowdProperty. Amazing process, very, very simple in comparison to more traditional lenders.
I've been lending from banks for the past 30 years. It takes so long to do anything. They want so much security. It could take 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. They turn around and say they're not doing it. CrowdProperty got a good understanding of the building industry and construction, much better than the banks have. They'll work with you to help you through the costings as well. There's no hidden pitfalls. They tell you everything up front. Every time you call, they're there. Any problems, they can sort out. They're pretty swift at sorting things out. CrowdProperty did everything they said they were going to do. You know, it is a game changer, to be honest. It's different from the other lendings, better than the other lendings, quicker, you're more in touch with them, and, you know, recommend to anyone else.
That gave you a bit of feel for what we're doing as a business, and it's really important to look at the customer outcomes, because that's really what we're building all the tech for, and that's what tech should be about. It's about building a better outcome for the customer and aligned to their needs. So that's good old business principles. But the power of tech is that you can do it better and better and build barriers to or differentiators versus your competition. So that's everything about CrowdProperty. Do visit crowdproperty.com to find out more. And pleasure being presenting. And if you have any questions at all, then do feel free to pop them in the chat box. And I'm just going to, if you have any questions, then I'm happy to take those. Stunned silence out there, but so look, thank you very much, and great to be part of Birmingham Tech Week. This will be on record. So thank you, Christian, for your comments about the video. That's great. So thank you. Have a great Birmingham Tech Week. Enjoy the other presentations. Not sure if he's been yet, but brilliant guy, Avin Ribeiro, CEO of Housekeep I used to work with. Great story there. Behind Housekeep, so that's worth a revisit on the recording if it was this morning, which might. Take care, have a good one, and